Sego Sewakwego, Yonyats Adarot Sario, good friend, Ronatayoni Wolf Clan. My name is Chief R. Donald Maracle. I am the elected chief of the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte. I say to you today, Dekanungarados, greetings to everyone. Today we commemorate and celebrate and remember the great sacrifice of our ancestors as allies of the English king during wartime. Shortly after the American Revolution broke out in 1776, it was in 1677 that Captain John Deseranto removed our people from our homeland near Fort Hunter, and we went and encamped near the village of Lachine in Quebec. There our people endured much heartache and much suffering, while our warriors led forays into the Mohawk Valley, disrupting enemy supply lines and being a source of intelligence for the British war effort. However, after the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783, no provision was made in that treaty for our people to return to their homeland. We then had to look for a new settlement in our traditional hunting ground. Captain John Deseranto chose the shores of the Bay of Quinte, and Captain Joseph Brant chose the Grand River area to settle. Well, it was hoped that all of the Mohawk people would settle in one place. That did not occur. On May the 22nd, 1784, the Fort Hunter Mohawk people came and settled here at the Bay of Quinte. When they landed in a very beleaguered state, they overturned a canoe and gave a service of thanksgiving for their safe arrival to these shores. A Mohawk hymn was sung and a prayer was said by our ancestors at that time. And so today we commemorate that same act of our ancestors here on the shores of the Bay of Quinte, where they landed 238 years ago. And we celebrate their great resilience and their great sacrifice as allies of the Crown. I would like to share with you today a little bit about our history and our relationship with the Crown and what life was like before Europeans came. Before Europeans came to North America, our people always had a deep belief in Sungwaya Dizon, the Creator, meaning the one who finished my body. It was always recited before any gathering took place, the Ohondo Gariwatego, to give thanks to the Creator for all living things in the earth, the water, the air, and the universe which sustain us in this life, and that they still continue to perform the purposes for which they were created. Our ancestors always believed that the breath of life came from the Creator, and we were always to respect all forms of human life, and plant life, and animal life. Our ancestors at times would burn tobacco to give thanksgiving, sage for healing, and sweetgrass for purification. We had a system of government called the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which was comprised of 50 chiefs appointed by clan mothers. The Mohawks had 9 clan chiefs in the Confederacy, representing 3 for the Turtle Clan, 3 for the Wolf Clan, and 3 for the Bear Clan. The other members of the Confederacy also had appointed chiefs. After Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, 13 colonies sprang up along the Atlantic seaboard, which began English colonization of America. While colonization took place, plantations were established in those colonies, and American slave trade flourished, bringing many slaves to America to work on those plantations. In 1534, Jacques Cartier came down the St. Lawrence River to meet the St. Lawrence Iroquois people at Stadacona, now Quebec. The early economy established at Stadacona, or Quebec, by Samuel Champlain in 1608 was the fur trade. The Mohawk Nation had peace and friendship and trade with the early colonizing nations, both the English, the Dutch, and the French. In 1613, the Two-Row Wampum Treaty was made with the Dutch. It was symbolized on a treaty belt with a ship and canoe traveling down the River of Life, never interfering in each other's affairs, but yet having peace, friendship, and respect for each other's nations. However, as furs began to be depleted in the traditional territories of the various Indian nations engaged in this fur trade, conflict arose among the indigenous nations over traditional territory. At this time, European diseases were also causing great devastation and death among the indigenous nations as the spread of smallpox and influenza continued. It is estimated that some 90% of the indigenous people died as a result of contact. Rivalry was a hallmark between the English, the French, and the Dutch. In 1665, the English defeated the Dutch, and after that, the Mohawk people entered into the 1677 Silver Covenant chain of friendship with the English. They would be brothers, allies, and have trade, peace, and friendship as long as the grass grows, the water flows, and the sun shines. They would always ensure that their conduct brought no tarnish or stain on the relationship, and if ever that did happen, they were to meet and polish the chain and restore it to what it was meant to be. In the 1670s, the French began to fortify the upper Great Lakes, while Jesuit priests preached the gospel and the politics of the King of France among the French Indian allies. The English wished to emulate the same policy and place the Church of England clergymen among the Mohawk and United Nations to preach the gospel and to promote the politics of the King of England. This was done through the newly formed Society of the Propagation of the Gospel in Foreign Parts. In 1702, a missionary named Thurgood Moore was sent to the Mohawks. The Mohawks refused to receive the missionary due to ongoing land frauds and abuses. It must be remembered that by 1700 that America was the scene of a colossal struggle for imperial supremacy, primarily between the English and the French nations, and it was imperative to renew and strengthen the covenant chain of the Mohawks and remove the tarnish caused by the land frauds and abuses. In April of 1710, it was arranged that a visit to take place with what was styled by the English as the Four Indian Kings to take place with Queen Anne at St. James's Palace in April of 1710. The Mohawks' emissariats informed Queen Anne that they needed more help for more military aid for the 13 colonies, that if a clergyman was sent, that the clergyman would receive a most hearty welcome. In response to this request, Queen Anne asked the Archbishop of Canterbury to have the first chapel royal built at Fort Hunter and furnished it with the historic 1712 Queen Anne's silver, which we will see placed on the canoe at the ceremony on May the 22nd. The covenant chain brought our people into many battles on the side of the English king. The 1755 to 1759 French-Indian Wars, Mohawks were allies of the British and helped to defeat the French at Niagara in 1759. John de Toronto was also present at the signing of the capitulation at Montreal in 1760. In 1776 to 1783, the Mohawks fought as allies of the English during the whole life of the American Revolution. Our great leaders at that time, Mohawk military captains John de Toronto and Joseph Brant, would lead forays into the Mohawk Valley, disrupting enemy supply lines and being a source of intelligence for the British war effort. With the signing of the Treaty of Paris of 1783, our homelands were lost and became part of the United States of America. Our great leaders, Captains Joseph Brant and Captain John de Toronto, took our people north to settle in our traditional hunting grounds at the Bay of Quinte and at the Grand River. When war broke out in 1812, once again the King of England saw the Mohawks as faithful allies and who fought on the side of the English to defend the land that would eventually one day become Canada. Other nations fought as well. The Ojibwe warriors, the Mississauga warriors fought as allies as well. Without the help of what were called the Indians, there would never have been a Canada. However, the policy changed in 1830 from being invaluable allies. Indians were now seen to be in the way of progress and colonial expansion. As the Crown encouraged more people to come, primarily in the beginning from the United Kingdom, to colonize this part of what is now Canada and the United States, a policy of assimilation and cultural genocide occurred. It was marked with growing racism, dispossession of land, hunger, frauds, and the loss of language. In 1831, The residential school system was started with the first Mohawk Indian residential school built at the Grand River, called the Mohawk Industrial School. And despite all of these events, the Mohawks always maintained their loyalty to the Covenant chain and the Kingdom of England. In 1847, Sir John A. Macdonald sought advice from Edgar Ryerson on an Indian school model, who recommended the Indian residential school system, where basic training in agriculture would occur, woodworking, mechanics, domestic sciences, and children would be assimilated in the English way of life and forced to abandon their language, culture, and be separated from any family ties or influence. Despite all of these events, when war broke out, our ancestors always fought on the side of the English king in great numbers. In World War I, 101 served in the war. In World War II, 213 served. We had people serve in the Korean War, the Gulf War, and Afghanistan wars. And many who fought gave their lives. In the United States of America, many of our members fought as soldiers in the Vietnam War. All of these sacrifices were for peace, for freedom, the preservation of democracy, humanitarian decency, and the respect of all of our rights. The world benefited from our service and our great suffering and sacrifice. And so today we celebrate the resilience of the Mohawk people. We commemorate the sacrifice and remember the sacrifice of our ancestors. And we invite all Canadians to broaden their knowledge of the history and great contributions of Indigenous people, among them the Mohawk Nation. Thank you very much. Nyamangoa.